It's time for the main event. It's the Shoeshine.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. It's the return of the Shoeshine. I'm your host, Dave from the 408, coming to you all the way from my home studio in San Jose. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, all the way from the city of brotherly love, Philly Irish, Mr. Drew Evo. Que pasa, homie? Man, I'm just really glad to be back on the air. To all of those who have been supporting us to our new venture, we are on YouTube full-time now, and we're really trying to grow the channel, so I thank everyone who has subscribed. And if you're new to the show and you like what you're hearing, we're on every Monday, 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's interactive. It's a forum for boxing fans who love the sweet science, casual, hardcore. You're all invited to call in, participate in the chat. With that being said, let me give a shout out to our homies at the Leave It in the Ring radio network, Leave It in the Ring, that hosts our podcasts. And it's just a great group of guys. Tuesday night, we have HCP with D-Styles Boxing and G-Funky. Wednesday night, HCP Uncensored on G-Funky's YouTube channel. And of course, Thursday night, we have the Roundtable, which brings together all the podcast greats, including people from other YouTube boxing channels, just to talk about what's going on in the world of the sweet science. And a shout out to David Duenas and Emil Carr, who did not do their Monday show tonight, but we look forward to their show next week. Drew, man, this weekend was pretty good, brother. I was looking forward to this 130-pound, the return of Jamel Hering, the 130-pound WBO champion, against a fellow countryman. I'm talking about Carl Frampton, the Irish guy. Your thoughts, man, because I called it wrong on the round table and you called it correctly in the chat. You had Jamel Hering winning. Talk to me, brother.
Jamel Harrington the whole time, and it wasn't happening. It just kept him at bay, and just it was a well-rounded performance, and it just finished him with a uppercut he didn't see coming.
You know what, Drew? My podcast producer associate, my wifey, was telling me that there was some audio problems, so I do appreciate. And if anybody wants to let me know if you can hear Drew, is it all good now? I think it's all good now, right? All right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And we got a call already. But Drew, go ahead and finish that thought, and we could take this 209 call.
Now, the thing is, he did what he had to do. It was the biggest payday of his career. He came in there. It was the biggest name on his resume, and he went in there and passed with flying colors. He actually stopped them. So it was a great win for him, actually. Bigger paydays.
Yeah, it really was a great win. And I was totally incorrect. I want to take 209 because I did promise we're interactive, so why make them wait? Let's take 209 here. 209, you're on the Shoeshine. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
What's going on, man? This is Dave.
Hey!
From Riverbank, California.
Dave Duenas.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, man. Thank you for calling, brother. Yeah, man, this weekend was such a... to me, it was kind of exciting, but it was a little bit early for me. But I'm glad that we have all this technology, and I got to watch this fight, even if it was in Dubai and it was at lunchtime. I got to watch it on my phone. But Dave, your thoughts on Jamel Hering proving everyone wrong and beating up someone who was a two-time world champion, who was trying to become a three-time the first three-division Irish champion. Your thoughts on that? I was shocked a little bit because I really didn't expect Jamel Hering to look that great against a tough guy like Carl Frampton.
I'm kind of surprised. I keep hearing this, that everybody was expecting a very tough fight for Hering because, honestly, I thought that was the reason why they were chasing him the same reason why Shakur Stevenson wanted Frampton, because he looked old already. We're talking about a guy that's a warrior, a guy that's been fighting, and he's been in some great fights and didn't look very good as last time. So I wasn't really surprised because I kind of expected to see a guy that looked like he's been shop worn, in my opinion. And that's why I think I'm a little like, what the fuck did I miss with everybody saying that, Hering was going to look great against a guy that looked like he was on his way out. Not taking anything away from it. I thought he went out there, didn't play with his food, and he did what he had to do. But I honestly thought this was the passing of the torch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And Frampton certainly looked the older of the two at this point. Maybe all those wars he had, like with opponents like Leo Santa Cruz, but he definitely looked the older of the two, with not much left in the tank. What's ironic is I was discussing with Drew is that I actually thought that the coronavirus that Jamel Hering had, not once but twice tested for it last year, I thought it would be a factor in his performance. Right. And it wasn't at all. So I have to eat my words on that, right?
Well, because it does affect everybody different. Not everybody's going to have the same symptoms. Not everybody's going to have the same response, to the coronavirus. I think everybody keeps having this perception that once you get coronavirus, like you hear reports that some people are having heart problems, breathing problems, whatever the symptoms they're getting after. But it hits everybody's immune system completely different. That's why, there's not a tackle, or when people compare it to other viruses, they're like, well, this and that. There's no comparison because we don't still understand this coronavirus, So, he obviously went out there, Hering, he went out there and he showed that it didn't affect him. He looked healthy. But I just sit back and being very optimistic of, and as a fight fan and looking closely at these fighters is that even if there was no issue of coronavirus, of him getting it twice, I still think he would have looked great because the fact it's Frampton. Frampton did not look good in his last outing. He was a guy that's been shop worn already. He's been in a lot of wars. We can't take that away from, the great Irish champion here. You know what I mean? It's. I'm not trying to downplay what Hering's done, but come on, let's be honest. Frampton's not the same dude that went out there and schooled Santa Cruz, right?
Absolutely. One thing that leading up to this fight, I think that had swayed me to put doubt on Jamel Hering was the fact that so many of the other guys at 130 pounds of the champions that I'm talking about, and I include Berchelt because just 6 months ago, I thought Berchelt was the dominating beast of 130. And now the entire landscape has changed because of that fight that we just saw Berchelt be completely dominated by Oscar Valdez. So I'm asking people in the chat, and also when we play this back on the podcast, but should Jamel Hering just ignore Shakur Stevenson, right? He is the elephant in the room. Oscar Valdez isn't talking about fighting Shakur. And really, shouldn't two champions face each other immediately? ESPN, Drew, I don't know if you saw this, but I'd like your thoughts, both of you guys' thoughts. ESPN, either they made a mistake, but they didn't even rank their own Shakur Stevenson in the top 10 at 130 pounds. What's up with that?
I saw that, but I think ESPN is in the same is viewing it as the rest of us, boxing fans, is what has Shakur. He just entered this division. He hasn't made that impact. And you know what? I don't think anybody would not opt fighting him. But if you have a chance to fight somebody that's more recognized, like, Jamal saying, hey, I want to fight Oscar Valdez. Who do you think is going to go after? Oscar Valdez, who just got KO of the year and fought the monster of the division. That's a huge accomplishment. If he could take out Oscar Valdez, it says a whole lot about him. Whereas versus Shakur Stevenson, as much as everybody wants to stamp Shakur Stevenson as this great boxer without even proving anything, if he beats him, guess what? It's going to go back to the talks of saying, well, you beat a kid that we had assumptions about but never proved it. Whereas with Oscar Valdez, guess what? He proved it, that he beat the man to be the man.
Yeah. Drew, let me ask you, Drew, Shakur Stevenson scheduled to fight on Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City. He's going to start acknowledging being half Puerto Rican and trying to maybe corner that market. But the guy he's fighting, I don't know his name. I don't recognize him. David, I don't recognize him. Is this the right attitude to get a championship fight at 130?
No.
David, are you aware of the guy he's fighting on Puerto Rican Day Parade?
I'm just going to echo and parrot what this Devo said right now. No.
And some people might say that Shakur's what he did to get the belt at 126 wasn't much either.
I mean, look, what he did at 126 is what he did at 126, but he's not at 126. So does it really matter? It's just the same argument like Terrence Crawford. Everybody's labeling him as the best 147. Oh, yeah, and then they'll bring up the factor of what he did at 140, but that's at 140. What have you done at the new division that you're at? And that's what as a boxing fan, see, that's what we want to know. That's what we want to find out about our fighters. It's in order for me to recognize you or get to know you on a personal level, you got to do some pretty intimate things, which is beat the guys in the division that matter.
Mm-hmm. G Funky Boxing says Hering needs to cash in on his big fight and fight Valdez. Drew, age being a factor, is G Funky right? Should he just completely ignore Shakur Stevenson like he's doing even in the media and just go for this super fight with Oscar Valdez?
I think anybody should ignore Shakur Stevenson. He hasn't fought anybody that can actually fight. So how do you expect him to be catapulted to a title fight where he clearly hasn't fought anybody? Like, normally you're supposed to up in your competition before you get into a title fight with the big fish. He hasn't done nothing close to that. He was given a 126-pound title, and he hasn't fought a guy that can actually even fight. So that, I would say, every champion should not even entertain the fact or even think about wanting to fight Shakur Stevenson. I think Hering should cash in on this because he's 35. He's in the late round of his career and everything. Like, you're one loss away. He's one loss away from possibly retiring if you look at it, because he's 35 now.
Most definitely. I think, David, are you still with us? We may have lost David. If you want to call back, David, yeah, man, we appreciate it. David from Leave It in the Ring on Monday nights. You're free to call back. But I wanted to post this to the chat because we're talking about, I think we may have got him back here. Pick this one up here. Hey, Dave, you with us?
Yeah, but I don't know what happened. I got dropped.
Okay, so I just wanted to pose this to the chat. But there's a guy who was the beast recently, and now he's not so much. But Miguel Berchelt, is he someone that we'd like to see I'd like to see him mix it up with Shakur Stevenson. I really am in favor of Oscar Valdez fighting the Marine, Jamel Hering, and I'd like to see Miguel Berchelt and see if Shakur Stevenson makes easy work of him. Anyone agree with me or disagree?
I mean, I like to see first Berchelt, see how he looks after, because we have to be honest, that was a brutal KO, and he took a brutal. It wasn't like all of a sudden he got dropped and knocked out. He took a beating, and as we know in boxing, a beating's worse than just getting knocked out. Where it's very difficult to come back. So I don't know how well his body's going to do. And then, automatically it's going to be a 6-month suspension anytime a fighter gets knocked out, especially in that fashion. It's going to be out, bro. I mean, Shakur's fighting, but, if it happens, it happens. I don't know how much credit, though. If Shakur Stevenson stops Berchelt, how much credit are they going to get from something, like that? You know what I'd like to point out, though, really quick with you guys, because I was going to bring this up on the Leave in the Ring, but, some things came up that my co-host couldn't come on. That's why we postponed for tomorrow. American fighters have been getting, bagged on a lot for not taking on fights that are kind of playing more of the monopoly money role. in terms of not, want to do this or that unless they're getting big pay. Jamel Hering, we got to applaud because he's taken on the fights. He wants the fights that are out there that are available in his division. Whereas you get these guys like Tank, Shakur Stevenson, et cetera, that are actually, they want to be more promoters than fighters at this moment. So Hering, to me, is a breath of fresh air to show that, as an American, we still have fighters that are willing to be traditionally want to take the road of going for the best fights available. Whether or not Frampton was over the hill or, like I said, shop warm, it doesn't matter. That was a guy that he had to take on in order to kind of get on the same road to face these other champions that are there in front of him.
I do agree with that. Drew, you share that sentiment?
At the end of the day, he wants to unify. It looks like he wants to unify the division. Hering, that's his main target now. And this might be the last chance he has a chance to even try to unify a division.
Yeah,
but
you got to go for that.
And it leads to bigger paydays. Like these guys, like I kind of don't want to see him fight Shakur Stevenson, because it's a fight that if he wins, it's a lose-lose, because if he wins by decision, he couldn't knock a guy out that Oscar Valdez easily manhandled if you look at it from a point. And if he knocks out Vergil, he knocked out a beaten guy that should not even been in there in the first place. So it's a lose-lose, high risk, low reward, no reward at all, in my opinion, to fight him.
Yeah.
What kind of sucks for Shakur Stevenson, though, really think about it, because if he gets Vergil, or let's say, Frampton, who announces his retirement, but as we know, fighters, they change their mind faster than they change their canzones. Frampton can say, hey, I'm going to make the comeback, and Shakur gets them. No matter what Shakur does, because, I think Shakur needs recognizable names to get the respect that he's asking for, but sometimes recognizable names don't get you the respect that is warranted to be, he's the guy, that's going to make a huge difference. As much as, ESPN are trying to push for him, I am not sold, because guess what? Networks and even media have pushed guys in our face that we already know that's not going to be a factor. It's always the guys that are factors, or always the guys that honestly nobody pays attention to. They're the ones that make the most noise, and the reason why is because they're fighting for their position. Their position is not given to them. Vergil fought for his position. Oscar Valdez fought for his position. It's really rare we see a guy that's been given this, that takes it and understands what they've received and go, I'm going to make something out of this. Like Canelo Alvarez. I wasn't a fan of Canelo Alvarez. The guy hung up on me, for crying out loud, because I was questioning his motives and his moves when he was cherry picking and he was, doing catch weights. But now, now he's actually making the right choices. It's really rare we see that, where a guy finally makes the right choices, and that's why I've never been sold on a lot of these other guys that have been given until they prove me wrong, Prove me wrong, and then I'll give you the due.
I'm feeling that, yeah. And that's news to me. I did not know that Canelo Alvarez story.
You know what?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel.
You know what? When it comes to Shakur Stevenson, I don't think he's going to have a chance to make a name for himself in 130. I think he's going to have to go bump up to 135 to at least have a chance to fight more of these guys, because there's more names in that division than in 130.
No, I agree.
So he's going to have to probably move up to fight at 135, because he's not going to get recognition at all unless he gets bumped up to fight Oscar Valdez or Jamel Hering. These two are going to know him. So What's the motivation of the move? Get a fight with Tank? You're not getting any business with PBC or Mayweather because you're with Top Rank most of the time. So it's a rare basis that you're going to get business from them. So what's the next thing? Move to 135. You got some 135 pounders in Top Rank, like Comey, Lomachenko. You can get a fight maybe with Lomachenko, or they can push for you to fight Devin Haney or something. Something's got to give, because it's at a point now. Who else can you? What's the strategy of building him up if you're putting him against guys that can't fight?
You know,
right.
At the end of the.
I agree with you.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with, Drew, what he's saying, because, you know what? It also goes with the incentive of a promoter. If the promoter, like Floyd Mayweather, who's made his, millions and millions, and can still continue to do that on his own, where's the incentive of him wanting to push his own fighters to make that amount? I think, in my opinion, a lot of young fighters are getting high pays in the beginning of their career, but they're not looking down the road. I remember when, like, the whole PBC and Al Heyman, we were the first ones to really talk about it. Steve Kim was the first one to really write about Al Heyman. We were trying to get as much information about Al Heyman. And my only criticism with Al at the time was I wasn't knocking him from getting the amount of money he was getting for his fighters, but my question was the incentive. You give these fighters all this amount of money fighting, which was like Andre Berto, who was getting this crazy amount of money fighting and nobody on the HBO. Where's the incentive of them wanting to prove their worth? And guess what? Now we're facing that repercussions of those things, because now fighters are like, well, why do I need to fight this guy if I can get paid this amount? But then what happens is you have fighters that go that fight, because I said the money has to run out. Maybe not out of your bank account, but the criticism, we're all human. We all don't want to be told that we're a piece of shit or we're not worth something that we that is being given to us, right? That's going to take a sting on egos, especially fighters or anybody that wants to be in the limelight. That ego needs to be fed one way or another. Now you're seeing fighters go, hey, man, I want to fight this guy. And their promoter is telling them, no, we're not doing that. So that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't work just with the fighters of the incentive of they wanted to get more. It has to work with the promoter too. Don't be with a promoter that doesn't have the incentive of going, I'm hungry like you're hungry. I'm trying to make a mark in this sport like you're trying to make a mark in this sport. Pick the right team to get you to that point. Espinosa Jr., Frank Espinosa Jr., who's Oscar Valdez, here's a group that are very selective of who they put in their circle. And the reason why is because it keeps them hungry. Pick the fighter to push them, to get that recognition. They're not trying to be, P. Diddy of the sport. They're just trying to be the guy to push their guy and get to their glory, and because that glory reflects on them. It gives them the stripes that's needed, so that when they try to sign another fighter, the fighter will be like, well, what have you done? Here's my stripes. Here's what I've done. That's just my 2 cents.
I know that you've had Espinosa, Oscar Valdez's manager, on recently on Leave It in the Ring, and I'm excited if you get a chance, an opportunity to get him on the air again, to ask him if that's a fight that they're actively now considering. But, by the end of 2021, what is exciting over at Top Rank, we're talking promotions, is that they could have a unified champ at 130, the unified champion at 135, and after May 22nd, we're going to have a unified champ at 140. So that's one segment, right, that Bob Arum, I have to give him kudos for that, because he's doing something great at those lower weight classes. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to something more fun, Dave. What's that?
But he might have an undisputed heavyweight champion.
Right, he does. Yeah, right, Drew. But what I was going to ask you was that, Bob has always done a great job since the 90s, early 90s. I mean, actually even like in the late 90s. Of having a lot of control of the lighter weight divisions, and he's been good at it.
And he continues to do so. So I wanted to segue into something a little bit more fun because I did put this on Twitter and I've got these phone calls. People are wanting to chime in on this. It's something more silly. We had some good fights on DAZN, but listen, Oscar De La Hoya, the Golden Boy's been making a lot of noise because he's jumping into the exhibition matches and he's going to fight an MMA fighter reportedly, right? Unknown one yet. So Dave, is there someone you'd like to see him mix it up with?
Well, I mean, last year when that was being reported and he was flirting with it, I don't know if I'm the first one that was actually tweeting this and even saying this on my podcast, but I was like, hey, Sergio Martinez is back. He's fighting. That'd be a good fight, in terms of the fact that, Oscar, I can't see him making 147 if it's exhibition or not. I see him more going to 160, 168. I mean, the older you get, the harder it is. I think me and Oscar De La Hoya were still in the same age range, and trust me, man, it's really hard to try to, slim yourself up. And I think I saw him in his last interview or whatever picture, dude, he looked bloated.
He looks bloated.
He had, like, a bunch of nuts in his cheeks and stuff. So, yeah, I don't see that. But, look, if you want to entertain me, a recognizable name would be somebody in the boxing world, not MMA world. I get what they're trying to do, but I tell you what, Oscar fighting an MMA guy, Juan Marquez fighting Miguel Cotto, which they were supposed to fight
Big
already
news.
in the past, but it fell apart. I would tune in to Cotto Marquez rather than De La Hoya versus some dude that has no chance or whatever, even if it is an exhibition. If you said Sergio Martinez, that to me that would actually perk my ears up and go like, okay, all right, that sounds more interesting,
I'm 100% on board with Sergio Martinez. I've been calling for that fight. It looks unlikely. If Sergio Martinez does still look really good as he's rehabilitated. Another guy, Drew, what do you think of Marcos Maidana, who's actively in the gym?
I was more thinking Tito Trinidad or Ricardo Mayorga.
Ricardo Mayorga.
Oh, wow.
Where is that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of those are great names. So anyone who wants to chime in on the chat, Joe Lopez says Oscar versus Dana White. And he is not an MMA fighter, but Dana White is the face of the UFC. Hey, Dave, I really appreciate you working with us and having me and Drew be part of the Leave It in the Ring network. And just remind everybody where tomorrow they can catch Leave It in the Ring, your show tomorrow.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice because Drew showed up at my house with a gun and the Irish mob. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to have to put you guys on. So.
Yeah, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, you and Amilcar are going to get together, though, on Leave It in the Ring on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we should be able to, man,
Okay, so it'll be a double.
We should be able to.
It should be two great shows tomorrow. HCP, of course, D Styles and G Funky will probably come on after you guys, right?
Absolutely, bro.
All right,
Absolutely.
man. And thanks for having us on the network again, man. And I really enjoyed the phone call, Dave. Take care tonight, man, brother.
All right, brothers. I'm going to still watch.
I appreciate it.
Great show, guys.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you. I should say thank you. So, who on the earth should Oscar De La Hoya fight, and why is he fighting on Triller? You got to get that right. It's Triller and not Thriller. Let's take 714 because this guy's been telling me he has an opinion on who the Golden Boy should fight. All right, 714, you are on the air.
What's happening, Dave?
And who is this calling? Remember, you may be new to.
Impediment man.
Is my buddy Speech Impediment Man from the Howard Stern Show and Compound Media, right?
How you doing?
You were in New York, or are you still in New York?
No, I'm home. I flew in this morning.
Okay, so for people new to you,
I was in New York.
You were hitting the comedy club. How's the comedy scene in New York? Tell me.
It's coming back. It's coming back slowly but surely.
All right. And you didn't get the virus coming back.
No, I've been studio with In Hot Water, and then I went over to New Jersey to Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club to see my friend Aaron Berg perform, and they were great. Yes, New York is slowly opening. In fact, Jerry Seinfeld that night was at Gotham in New York City.
Oh, really? Was he wearing a mask?
Yes. I have no idea. I was in New Jersey that night.
Well, you weren't even there, Speech. Okay. No. All right, Speech. Well, I appreciate you calling. Now, Drew Evo still owes you $50 from a bet. And this is going to be important because in the future, we're going to be doing a lot of bets on this radio network to leave it on the ring. It could be pies in the face. It could be cash. And we'll square away that bet at a later date. We're calling because who do you want to see Oscar De La Hoya fight?
I was actually going to ask you about the Howard Stern.
You know what? I was thinking, what about Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao? Or if he wants to go the MMA route, how about Conor McGregor?
Well, what about that, Drew? Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao or Conor McGregor, the MMA route. Are those all good opponents? Starting with the first one.
None of them's going to happen. If the only MMA guy I would probably want to see him in the ring with is probably GSP.
George St. Pierre. Now, that would be an exciting... and, I'm starting to wonder... 951, hold on. I'm starting to wonder if all of these people are watching what Chavez Jr. is doing, right? Fighting this
joke.
Anderson Silva and saying, well, let me pick somebody from the MMA world. Speech, I'm really happy you called. Now, on Twitter, for people who aren't familiar, you're beefing with Tan Mom from the Howard Stern Show. What's going on with that?
Who is that?
I don't know how that started. I think my enemy, High Register Shawnee, somehow he threw in his 2 cents in there, and he's trying to start a beef between me and Tam Mom. Now, I have nothing against Tam Mom. In fact, I went to one of her shows at Governor's in Long Island, New York. I think it's just my enemy, High Register Sean, trying to stick his nose where it doesn't belong.
All right. Well, if you guys get a chance, you may have to settle that in the ring. We've been calling for a fight against you and High Register Sean.
You can't fight a female, Dave.
No, High Register Sean. This is the guy on Twitter. He's instigating a fight, and it's High Register Sean is behind it.
I don't even know the girl. What girl are you talking about?
We're talking about the world famous Tan Mom that went viral.
Oh, hell no.
Yes,
hell no.
Tan Mom has been saying some salacious things about Speech today on Twitter, and it's starting quite the feud. And we got this 951 who wanted to chime in on that. But Speech, all great calls. And I look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas sometime in May if it goes down, if we all remain healthy. I'm going to be out there for the Joshua Taylor versus Ramirez fight. I'm very excited. Everyone stay healthy and stay vaccinated. I appreciate the call, Speech. We will figure this out and get to the bottom of who's making up all this drama on Twitter, all right? I'll get to the bottom of this one way or another.
No problem.
All right, Speech. Thank you.
Dave,
yeah. Uh-huh.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You need to be, I don't know, a little more loving with your wife, because she's been texting me and...
oh, she has?
You know, you're my friend, but if I have to, I mean, I'm a friend of her, then I'll be more than happy to step in and take care of her.
A traditional male. You got too much testosterone.
Yeah, you're her husband, and I think you should take care of this.
Listen, the last thing I need is for you to be on testosterone replacement therapy if you're this horny in your 50s. I will address my wife later, Speech. Thanks for calling.
I think you should.
Wow. I got to go check. Do I have to look at my wife's cell phone, her texting with a 50-year-old comedian?
I think you do.
I don't know, man. They got something going on. That's why I'm not on Instagram, man. It's too much drama. Anyways, we had 951 calling. I want to get back. De La Hoya versus Vargas. That is a very competitive fight. Of course, Vargas' two sons are doing well. I mean, they've done well. They've started their professional careers. Vargas is always training with his children. One of those three might be really doing well in professional boxing. I think it's gonna be the youngest one, but they got unfinished boxing business, and of course the fans would love to see that. I would more than be excited to see him have a rematch with Vargas. Of course, Vargas from Las Vegas. I would be very, very much into that. If you want to call and give your opinion, we still got the phone lines open at 702-710-3627. Who should Oscar De La Hoya fight? Also, we got Ryan Garcia. His protege will be fighting Fortuna. It looks like that's going to be officially announced tomorrow. Drew, also A-Rod says, what about B-Hop? I know they're business partners, but it is an exhibition. They had a fight.
B-Hop's too much for him. B-Hop would still be too much for him.
And he didn't do too well in the very first fight, their only fight. Oscar was famously knocked out by a liver punch, perfectly placed liver punch. I think that really cemented to me that Oscar De La Hoya had no business moving up in weight that far up at 160. So it is an exhibition match. Oscar's been a heavier guy for a long time. Anybody who knows who gets suddenly older, it's like, oh, you were 160 pounds, 150 pounds, 147 pounds when you were young, and now you're close to being a cruiserweight as a 40-year-old man. But I wanted to get this other caller, 951, a shot to call to at least speak on this one. But if not,
at least he stayed away. He stays away from the lingerie and everything. He's good.
Yeah, definitely. So, Drew, this Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fortuna, another solid opponent. It looks like that's going to be announced tomorrow. Your thoughts on this? Is Ryan Garcia stepping up in competition from Luke Campbell?
Yes, he is, and thank God for that.
It's supposed to be announced tomorrow. I mean, it's not an easy fight by any means.
If this fight wasn't announced, we'll be hearing more lies.
Because I can't keep up with the 135-pound Devin Haney drama, all the belts.
Because most of all these guys lie about what's going on, trying to make the price tag up by lying. Oh, I think I'm gonna fight Manny Pacquiao. We already talked about it. No, we never talked to Ryan's people about it. I don't know what the fuck he's getting his shit from. Yeah,
right.
Ryan an exhibition first of all.
I'm gonna call this caller that wanted to call in while I still have the phone lines up. But yeah, it's supposed to be announced tomorrow. And you want to know something? Ryan Garcia's podcast is doing like I would kill. He's doing over 1 million something. Yesterday, I think he was talking about what does Ben Askren have to do to knock out the Paul brother.
Oh, that's easy. He's gonna beat Paul. He's gonna beat Jake Paul's ass like it's nothing before. I hope he does, and I think he's going to anyway. Have you seen a press conference? This dude Jake Paul embarrassed himself the whole freaking time. Like, it was so funny, man.
I did see it. There was a slap. I mean, he's done okay so far against the level of competition that the NBA player. But I know the hardcore boxing fans aren't particularly thrilled at all these YouTubers.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
So,
you don't want to talk to us.
So anyhow, I do appreciate everyone that's in the chat. A-Rod, Sonteo Media, G-Funky was in here. D-Style, what's up? Thank you. We're looking forward to the show tomorrow. This is a legit fight, and as soon as I hear it's officially announced, I'm going to be very excited about that. But there's also a lot of other drama going on, like in the UFC that's kind of crossing over to boxing now, is that Ngannou, Cameroon, Ngannou, that UFC beast, he's willing to fight Tyson Fury. We talked about it on the roundtable on Thursday because John Jones is going to be making a call for a lot of money to fight him, to move up to heavyweight. As he should. Now, if this fight doesn't materialize, he's being very vocal, the champion, Ngannou, that he wouldn't mind fighting your guy, Tyson Fury. And that brings a smile to my face.
It does, but at the same time, man, these MMA guys hasn't really fought any of these. I don't know.
No,
I just don't like the idea of it because, tell you the truth, venturing in is like a boxing guy venturing into an MMA thing, and you know what happens, like James Toney.
Yes, but also Tyson Fury, not too long ago, was in training, doing kicks, doing all kinds of MMA stuff. He said he would be interested in MMA. Remember, he was training for with an MMA, kind of teasing the public about maybe going into the octagon.
I don't think that will work out, neither for Tyson. But here's what I really think. Like when it comes to like MMA crossover to boxing crossover, it's really gotta be the right situation. And like boxers, like MMA guys want to come over to boxing because you make more money than you do MMA. Because don't get me wrong, I think it's more of it's more easier to get hurt in MMA than it is in boxing, but you get paid a little bit of money. Like it's like those low card guys probably make like 10 grand a fight.
Oh, they make very little money. And let's not forget that the show was launched with our friend, a semi-pro cage fighter who got paid very little on the circuit on the East Coast, our friend Crab Daddy. All right, let's move on to this weekend's fights because we've been having a lot of fun. The phone line is still open. Of course, guys, there's going to be 3 fights this weekend to be watching. There's Showtime. There's DAZN early in the day. It's got a great welterweight potential matchup with someone that is close to our show, Samuel Vargas, a Colombian guy from Toronto, Canada. He's going to be fighting Conor Benn. And also the return of Joe Smith Jr., who's been waiting for his fight on ESPN. But I want to get to your guy, Philly's Jaron Boots Ennis. Listen, he is fighting. Just weeks ago, we saw Vergil Ortiz fight a former world champion at 140 pounds. He put him away in under 7. Jaron Boots Ennis has been pretty much a beast in every challenge so far. And this weekend, he's going to fight Sergey Lipinets, also a former champion. So now we have got the 2 brightest prospects in the welterweight division that I got my eyes on. Of course, Vergil Ortiz and Boots Ennis, which is not getting the same attention as Vergil Ortiz. Maybe something Showtime, Showtime hasn't been doing as great as these other networks. They're arguably in a downward spiral. But does Boots Ennis have to knock out Sergey Lipinets this weekend to keep up with Vergil Ortiz? Because I think these 2 guys are on a collision course, and I want to know what the chat thinks. First of all, is Boots Ennis going to make easy work of Lipinets, or is Lipinets going to bring it?
He could pose a problem for like maybe 3 rounds, and then it could all end in like maybe 5 or 6.
5 or 6. That's kind of on track with what Vergil Ortiz did the other day, facing a former world champion. So I'm also in agreement with you. I'm going to call it right now and say that Boots Ennis is going to knock this guy out in under 10. Maybe not 6 or 7, but Lipinets didn't hold on to his title very long, and we saw that he wasn't very competitive against Mikey Garcia, a much smaller fighter. And also, Mikey Garcia hasn't carried any pop at the welterweight division. So you seem to think that he'll knock him out in 6 or 7?
6.
Wow. Okay. Chat, if you guys are still in here, do you think that Boots Ennis has to knock this guy out and do better just to keep up with Vergil Ortiz? Are these guys on a collision course? Somehow, some way, I think these guys are on a collision course. I'm looking forward to the development. But if Sergey Lipinets goes the distance, that might just be a moral victory to keep him in the welterweight division, man. He claims he's training as hard as ever. And we know that these Eastern European fighters, they always show up. I mean, they're always competitive. I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's move on to Joe Smith Jr., Drew, because the light heavyweight division is a very exciting division. And he is, of course, what everyone talks about, Bivol. everyone talks about Arthur Beterbiev, the Eastern European guys dominating that division. And before that, we had Kovalev, but we got the American version, the Union guy, Joe Smith Jr., fighting Maxim Vlasov, also a Eastern European guy who used to be a cruiserweight. Have you heard anything about Maxim Vlasov?
I heard he fought Real Dangerous Guy in like 2018 at cruiserweight. Forget his name and everything, but he was a Real Dangerous Guy.
Yeah, Christoph Glowacki, who, you know, was upper echelon cruiserweight. This guy's melted down, but he went 12 rounds. But he's coming off. This is really important. And it may not be important because, again, we had this conversation with David earlier in the night, is the fact that this guy battled coronavirus and this fight had to be postponed because of his coronavirus.
To be honest, when you're even going down from 200 to 175, that's a big jump.
That's a huge jump.
Remember when Chris Berber came back and Rapid Fire Chris Berber came back and came out of retirement, he was a heavyweight and he went all the way down to light heavyweight. And that didn't even end up well. He got knocked out by a light heavyweight. So I don't, it's a big jump. And from coronavirus and everything, I think it might be the same thing for this guy getting knocked out by Joe Smith.
And we know Joe Smith has got tremendous one-punch power. But barring that Joe Smith wins this fight, man, is this putting him in line to fight? I mean, these guys are all at top rank. You know, this Bivol fight could be made. And, of course, Arthur Beterbiev. Is he on a collision course with Arthur Beterbiev?
Well, he is fighting for a vacate WBO title. That makes him a titleist. So the next idea will probably be the Unify because there's not really much more fights he can have in that division. Like he can probably go and defend against Zoro Ramirez or Jesse Hart rematch, or he can go and fight WBA super champion John Pascal, which would be another name on his list.
Yeah, Jean Pascal is still competitive. The awkward guy, he comes out of nowhere. And I love the idea of Zurdo Ramirez, but Zurdo Ramirez left Top Rank as a result of all the drama he had with Bob Arum. I don't see how he agrees to fight on their cards anymore, man. That went really sour. And again, Zurdo Ramirez is one of those guys who took that fight against Bob Arum and was kind of put on the shelf, right?
Yep. So
that didn't work out too well for him.
At the end of the day, I think a fight with Benavidez would probably be more realistic than Bivol. So I think he wins this fight. He'll probably hit into a unification belt next.
Yeah, A-Rod 83 Bulk Sale, shout out to the homie. He wants to say that there's going to be a stoppage, no knockout because Boots is a beast. And he's commenting, of course, on the Boots Ennis fight. I am looking forward to that fight. I'm looking forward to the Joe Smith fight on ESPN because there's still a lot of unsettled things at the light heavyweight division.
Yeah. You hear about the Misha Shimov's going to make another belt for the Canelo Billy Joe Sanders fight?
I did. I wrote that down. And I'm sure we're going to be covering that on the network because there is a new belt for BJ Saunders. A couple of big things we didn't cover. We'll just go over them real quick. There's a new belt that the WBC is creating, and this one kind of plays homage to Mexico. So it's called the Mestizo belt. And the Mestizo, for in our culture, Mestizo, the word Mestizo means a mixture, right? And it plays homage to the fact that, you know, Mexican people are half Aztec or whatever indigenous tribe we came from mixed with Spaniards. So I don't know. I was asking someone on Twitter, what's going to happen if BJ Saunders, who's a gypsy traveler, right? A gypsy traveler with Irish origins, what happens when he wins this Mestizo belt? Again, I may be talking crazy, but you think BJ Saunders is going to win. So what's he going to do with the Mestizo belt?
He's going to change the colors of that belt to green, white, and orange. and we're gonna sing. And we're gonna have some Irish pride shit all night long.
I mean, we're joking about it, but again, like, what do you do? Is like, it's like giving somebody, like, if Canelo was fighting for the Irish flag belt or something. I mean, it's just kind of silly. Again, it's more of this WBC shenanigans with all these belts. It's week after week that we hear about a new belt. But Drew, seriously, David Benavidez, on a rival YouTube channel, his father said that his son is preparing to fight Canelo Alvarez. There's already talks about BJ Saunders pulling out with less than 4 weeks. We're less than 4 weeks away from this fight. They've already sold 40,000 tickets in Texas. I don't hear anything about what's going on in BJ Saunders' camp. But why are they preparing to be ready to be a replacement fighter?
I don't know. I didn't hear nothing about him potentially pulling out.
They made it very vocal that they are prepared to take the fight on days' notice. Now, if they're just going on the fact that BJ Saunders has had incidents of injury in the past, but it's very bold to say that they're ready to fight. Yeah, I think it's great. Your son should always be in shape. Like, he stayed in shape. He just fought recently. David Benavidez should stay in shape. He was the former champion, the former WBC champion. But I'm curious as to where they're getting this information that BJ Saunders is something's brewing in his camp.
And what would make them the replacement?
Well, they're gonna petition to the WBC, just like you said. Like I said, he's the former champion, the former WBC champion. He was only stripped of his title because he lost it on the scales.
But here's the thing: they should have petitioned it when he had to fight Yodrin. Because it should have been Yodrin and there should have been Benavidez or somebody else, not Yodrin, because that was a joke.
Now, as much as you might say that was a joke, your boy B-Hop today came out and said that the Yildirim fight, that he's cool with Canelo taking that fight because it's just preseason for the star player. Preseason. That's what it was. And that's coming from B-Hop.
It's a mandatory, but
a mandatory for the WBC.
I don't blame it for Canelo for taking the fight because it's a mandatory and everything. I blame the WBC for putting this dude as a mandatory, for putting this joke out there.
Well said, man. Yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans with these sanctioning bodies, and of course, it always seems to be that the WBC is in the middle of all the drama as we get ready to kind of wrap up our show. Drew, there is one more fight early in the day that I was just mentioning, and it's before I did this, I used to do these comedy podcasts with other comedians, and I always wanted to talk about boxing. And one of the first boxers that I interviewed was no, that's not it. Let me get this here. Was Samuel Vargas. Samuel Vargas is the first Latino fighter to headline a DAZN card against Amir Khan. And I had the pleasure of speaking with him right before that big Amir Khan fight. Of course, that launched the DAZN network. And he went on to fight your boy from Philadelphia, Danny Garcia. I mean, as a welterweight, he's fought the top. He's fought them all. And recently, he took a bit of a beating from Vergil Ortiz. Now, Amir Khan wants this guy Conor Benn from the UK to know, don't take Samuel Vargas. Samuel Vargas floored Amir Khan and became a hit in the UK over that. Like, they really like him in the UK, so they've invited him back. He's worked with Eddie Hearn. I think he's got a real chance at beating this prospect. Again, Conor Benn is just a prospect. And that puts him back in the mix to fight with all these top 147-pound guys, man. So I'm looking forward to see what he could do. I'm actually rooting for Samuel Vargas. And I hope if he does that we can get a post-fight interview, Drew. We're almost done with the show, so don't miss that one. Samuel Vargas on DAZN. He's coming back. The first fighter to headline, actually, him and Amir Khan launched the DAZN network. So that's sometime in the middle of the day. And he was one of my first actual boxers I interviewed. So looking forward to that, guys. That being said, Drew, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Your final thoughts with this weekend of boxing coming up ahead?
Oh, man. What can I say about these people, man? Like, I'll be honest, man. Our hardcore boxing fans, man, God help us. Like, when it comes to the BS they put on this internet now, with YouTubers wanting to try to become pro fighters, and then they get the competition of an NBA star and maybe 2 MMA stars, they fight. Then you got 2 YouTubers fighting.
Well, you know, it's changing the entire landscape of professional boxing. Triller, whether we like it or not, this Triller thing, they're going to be putting on that Ben Askren Jake Paul fight, and they're going to be mixing it up. I mean, they're bringing all kinds of real fighters over there. Oscar De La Hoya not fighting on his own Golden Boy Promotions card, but taking this new media venture, that's a big deal. I mean, what's going on with that?
He miserably failed at a lot of things, including an MMA promotion.
Yeah, and we could talk about that for an entire show. I definitely could talk about that subject. So I'm excited about these 3 fights next week, Drew. Thank you for joining me. This is the Shoeshine. I'm Dave from the 408. Don't forget, please, if you guys like this show, please help us out with subscriptions. We're a new channel, but we've been around on other platforms. Goodbye to Periscope. Some of our shows are there. They just closed their network. We're here full-time on YouTube. It could definitely use a subscription. Like it, share it on your social media. Our social media handles are right there at the Mike and Dave 1 on Twitter and Instagram if you want to hit us up, and at Drew Evo, of course, on IG. This has been the Shoeshine. You can check us out on the podcast recorded version on iTunes. Leave us some comments. Just go to Leave It in the Ring at iTunes and catch the Shoeshine there. I'll check you guys out next week. Peace.